Boxing.
Beats and rhymes.
Boxing.
Beats and rhymes.
Not long before, the WBC 140-pound champion Devin Haney got punched up by the drugs cheat Ryan Garcia. A fight was in the works to be made between him and Gervonta Tank Davis. When approached by Turki Alalshikh about an offer to make the fight, he said, "I want 2 Ferraris," because as far as he was concerned, Turki was backing Devin, like Devin's his guy. I think Tank jumped the gun a little there. I don't think he was. Turki responded, "I'll send you 2 boxing gloves." I guess they're the same colour as 2 Ferraris. Why does Tank need 2 Ferraris? Won't you go and drive one at a time? Ask for one. He might have got that.
AKA Ferrari.
Tank said the only reason people are going over there is because they can't sell elsewhere. He's right. There are exceptions, not many.
AJ Anthony Joshua
is a good ticket seller. I mean, he's just sold out Wembley with Daniel Dubois. And yes, it's Riyadh season, but it's in the UK. And AJ's had several stadium fights over here and done massive pay-per-view numbers. So that's not quite true. But in the case of most boxers, he's right. He is right. That bag is the reason why Makhmudov, the big Russian-Canadian, lost his unbeaten record. Deontay Wilder twice. We saw Jared Anderson go down the other day. Andy Ruiz. Jarrell Miller not looking too clever in there. Because they've been lured in by purses they haven't seen in any fights they've had in recent years. They've been lured in. Tyson Fury was making the Usyk negotiations awkward for the undisputed heavyweight title fight, but eventually he had nowhere to go. That was the biggest purse he could make in boxing. When they tried to make the fight at Wembley without that Saudi bag involved, Tyson asked for too big a split and the maths just didn't add up. When the Saudis got back involved,
Nowhere to run to, baby. There's nowhere to hide.
Saudi bag got him out there and his unbeaten record was gone. A lot of fighters have lost their unbeaten records there in Riyadh. The Francis Ngannou fight, which couldn't have done Tyson Fury's confidence any good going into the Usyk fight, got floored and won a split decision over a boxing novice who's never had a pro fight or an amateur fight for that matter, but he was UFC heavyweight champion and had a scary reputation. When Turki commented on the Jake Paul-Mike Perry fight, which I haven't watched and I'm not going to watch, saying that this isn't boxing, somebody replied and said, "Says a man who paid Francis Ngannou $30 million for 2 fights." And he didn't get $30 million. So a lot of people are thinking that everybody who fights in Saudi is getting this huge bag. And while they may be getting a bigger purse than what they're accustomed to getting, they're probably not getting as much as what you think they're getting. Turki replied, first, he didn't get $30 million for the 2 fights. Second, Francis Ngannou is a legend in the combat sports world, and that is true. Jake Paul is not. Can't really argue with that. I don't think Fury was trying to avoid Usyk. I think he was trying to stall for time because he wasn't in the shape required to give himself the best chance of victory against the likes of Usyk. Arguably, pound for pound, the best fighter in the sport. But is Tank using his A-side status, and yeah, he's making good money from his fights, is he using that to swerve the likes of Devin Haney, Shakur Stevenson? I mean, he's been as far as 140, while there was an undisputed champion at the weight class, Josh Taylor, and he picked off Mario Barrios for a baby belt, the WBA belt. Why didn't he fight Josh Taylor? Devin was undisputed at 135. Why didn't that fight happen? Because obviously Devin was going to demand what he was going to demand because he's undisputed. He's got 4 straps. But Tank wants total submission in negotiation from his opposition through the rehydration clause on Ryan. Didn't do VADA testing for the Frank Martin fight. And it's basically a hustle that him, Leonard Ellaby and Mayweather came up with. And Al Heyman. Let's not forget Al. Canelo said he got a text from Turki Alalshikh about doing a fight 2025 in February against Terence Crawford. Canelo said he's focused on this Berlanga fight at the press conference yesterday, and that's what he's focused on. Canelo said he doesn't like Turki Alalshikh, or he doesn't like how he works. And he said if him and Turki are going to work, then have to do it his way or the highway. Canelo, obviously, sells out arenas, does big pay-per-view numbers. Is he hiding behind his A-side status and his ability to get it in like Tank to avoid Turki, who wanted to make the Crawford fight, who wanted to make the Benavidez fight? Because Turki came back hard at Canelo. Canelo was saying, I don't need nothing from them, and blah, blah. I heard what Canelo said, that he respects me but doesn't like the way we do business. As for him respecting me, it doesn't matter to me if he does or not. As for the way I do business, I know why he doesn't like it, because I only target big fights at fair prices. So of course, anyone who likes easy fights won't like that. And I know how he feels after losing to Bivol, so he's been looking for easier fights ever since. Also, I'm not the one who's afraid of fighting Benavidez or Crawford. Therefore, I knew he was wasting our time and making excuses with big amounts of money that can't be paid. So I'm continuing my way to make big fights that serve the boxing world, and he's on his way to making easy show only fights. Shots fired. That was harder than the two Ferraris, bar he aimed at Tank. He went into depth there. Looks like Canelo touched a nerve.
Strike a nerve. Yo.
And basically, after that exchange, you do realize you can kiss goodbye to a Benavidez fight, even though Benavidez is at 175. But you can kiss goodbye to that, a Crawford fight, and a Bivol rematch. It's not going to happen now. You can offer Canelo record purses to take any of them 3 fights, but he's probably on a guarantee of 20 to 30 million to fight Edger Berlanga, who's holding on to this Puerto Rican versus Mexico. I mean, it's not exactly Sanchez versus Gomez. It's not exactly Oscar versus Trinidad. It's not exactly Camacho versus Chavez Sr. or Chavez Sr. against Edwin Rosario. Or perhaps my favorite, Trinidad versus Vargas. That era of Mexican-Puerto Rican fights died a long time ago. 90s. The Canelo fans will say it's a power move. He's not taking any shit from this sports washer, corrupt Arab guy. Canelo's moving like a boss. They won't talk about the 3 fights that are not happening that people want to see, but Canelo's moving like a boss. That's what the Canelo fans are saying. And the Tank is saying a similar thing, although Tank doesn't make as much as Canelo. And Canelo's going to retire soon. I'm quite sure of it. I hope he does, actually. I hope he does. Because I'm not really impressed with this phase of his career, to be quite honest. I'm not that impressed. In May, he wanted $200 million, between $150 million, $200 million to fight Benavidez. Turki disregarded that and said, let's move on.
Let us move on.
And yesterday, there was the stunning revelation that he wanted $150 million to fight Crawford. $150 million. And once again, Turki was like,
let us move on.
But these astronomical figures that Canelo wants for certain fights, why is it against the fights that people think would be difficult for him? Now, I know a lot of people are going to say that the Crawford fight would be easy. Look at Madrimov versus Crawford. I'm here to tell you that low-volume Canelo struggles with Terence Crawford, struggles with his reach, struggles with the speed of his jab. Not saying that Canelo will lose the fight, but I'm here to tell you it's a very difficult fight for him. And then with Benavidez, Canelo said the only thing he brings to the table or what he has to offer is 25 extra pounds. Meaning he's too big. He's not going to fight someone that big unless they pay him $200 million. But look, just keep it strictly boxing. 168 is 168. If you're a great fighter, you don't start questioning who rehydrates more. You defend your belt as unified champion. Because now it looks like you're cherry picking. With Crawford, he said he doesn't like fighters who move. But it's more than one thing, isn't it? It's either Crawford moves too much, even though he's going to be a lot lighter, and Benavidez is too big, even though he's not going to move. Canelo has won 4 out of his last 5. His last stoppage was in 2021. His last 4 fights have went the distance. Crawford, however, all world title fights, 11 knockouts in his last 12, all wins. And all of a sudden, Canelo's come up with this shit that Crawford is this runner. But after he beat Errol Spence, he was saying he was an effing great fighter. An effing great fighter. That's what he was saying. But as soon as Crawford called him out, you a runner, you're too small, too runner, you're not great. Like,
You don't bring anything new for me.
At the presser, when Edger Berlanga was compared to Mayweather and other fighters Canelo fought, and he said, "Are you having a bubble? You having a laugh? He's not in that class. He's not in that league." And as you hear there, he said, "You bring nothing new to me." Well, you're snitching on yourself. You're saying he brings nothing new because no one's expecting him to win. Edgar is the guy who at top rank was fed a lot of stiffs and was bowling them over. And as soon as they stepped up to Steve Rolls and Caceres, he was knocked down, won on points, the knockouts dried up, and he hasn't looked too impressive. In fact, he scored one stoppage in his last 5 or 6. Although the last stoppage against Padraig McCrory, the Irish guy, was pretty good. It was pretty good. And anything less than an emphatic victory for Canelo is going to be finger-pointing time. Not for the Canelo fans. Edgar could throw Canelo under the bus in the ring and they'd still make excuses for Canelo. That's just how they are. Some of them, I have a feeling, wouldn't be able to go back in their homes if they said anything against Canelo, so they choose not to. Even though they must be able to see the glaring, ducking and carefully selected fights he's making. I'm not saying he hasn't had some tough fights, but what? Look, I've got to balance it out. Not by taking Tank's side or Canelo's side. It's a dangerous sport. Very dangerous sport. And for them, it's like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. They've been successful doing what they've been doing. They're not going to let this new guy push them into fights that they're not sure they can win. They're just not going to let that happen. For years, Canelo and Tank have been defying the critics. Take this fight, take that fight. They've just defied the critics and done what they wanted to do. Why are they going to change that because of Turki Alalshikh? They don't have mortgages they're desperate to pay off and other expenses like that they really need the Saudi bag. They've had enough juice that they've been able to flip off the sanctioning bodies when they want to, and at other times they've got them to concede to catch weights, rehydration clauses, in Tank's case a whole load of baby belts, and they enjoy the power they've been able to yield, and they're not going to succumb to Turki Alalshikh. They're not going to do that. They're not going to do that. So they're rebels in a position to be rebels. But yo, a duck is a duck. At the end of all of that, a duck is a duck. I think Turki had a point about the Bivol fight for Canelo. I think it's put him in touch with his mortality as a boxer. From now, the only people who are going to be satisfied with the fights he takes are his fans. The fans outside of his fan base are going to be very frustrated with Canelo. There's always a risk, even against Edger Berlanga, because he can hit, and he's bigger than Canelo. But he is practicing risk-reward to stay in the game and collect them purses. Undisputed super bantamweight champion Inoue. Earlier this year, we thought he was going to be on the Anthony Joshua Daniel Dubois card at Wembley, taking on Murodjon Akhmadaliev. Riyadh season, but he opted to stay in Japan, and he'll be taking on TJ Dehaney in Japan in September. And I don't know what the math is looking like. I'm assuming, but I could be wrong, that the Akhmadaliev fight at Wembley is a bigger money fight than the TJ Dehaney fight in Japan. Risk reward? Is that what it is? Easier fight for a little less money. But when we're saying a little less money, he's doing 5-6 million a fight over there in Japan. Sold out the 50,000 plus Tokyo Dome in his last fight against Neri. This is a super bantamweight. It's a nice little hustle. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. A lot of people are saying, why are you taking this fight instead of that fight? But his team have made up their mind, and maybe getting floored against Neri and shook up a little in his last fight. They want a little something easier and keep the machine rolling and make some bank.
I got money in the bank.
Not everybody has to rush for that Saudi bag. You know what I mean? Some people have other options. It is what it is. People ain't really making a big deal about Inoue's situation because the lower weights are not spoken about as much as 135 and 168 with Tank and Canelo.
Beats and rhymes.
Boxing.
Beats and rhymes.